Hi, my name is Rainer Crosett. I'm an American cellist, originally from Boston, but now living in Berlin, where I'm studying at the Berlin University of the Arts. I first came to Salzburg a couple of years ago to visit Luke.
And I'm Luke, and I'm an American violinist from Houston, Texas. And I moved to Salzburg 2 years ago to study with the wonderful Pierre Amayal at the Mozarteum University. And it's just been an absolute joy to live in Salzburg. It's such a beautiful place, a very inspiring place. Funnily enough, I was supposed to be here 3 months ago, but I just came back from a trip from Israel, and I was in Berlin, and the lockdown happened quite immediately. So I was stuck in Berlin for a couple of months, and that was when we
started. Well, we thought we don't have any live concerts going on. We wanted to work on something together, and so we decided to explore some of the lesser-known duos for violin and cello. We were looking around on IMSLP. Of course, we all know of the Kodai duo and the Ravel duo, the most famous and often played works for violin and cello, but we discovered that there were duos by both Schulhoff and Honegger, as well as a duo by Haydn that we'd never heard of, although its status as a composition by Haydn is contested. We still explored it and loved it, and decided to put together a program also where we would intertwine these lesser-known duos with the two-part inventions of Bach.
Yeah. When was the first time you heard of these composers? Like, when was the first time you heard of Honegger?
To be honest with you, I had heard the name, but I had never heard any of his music until you pointed out the orchestral piece that you had played.
Yeah, so I played, I think it was his third symphony, in amazing work. And I played it a couple of years ago in the chamber orchestra. It also has a trumpet solo that plays in the last 20 bars. And it was one of those works that, even though I was just in the orchestra, it still gave me a heart attack because it was one of the most difficult orchestral works I've ever played. But it was certainly an unusually expressive language and a very unique language. And once I saw that he wrote a duo for violin and cello, I was like, whoa, what is this like? And I'm so glad we discovered it, because it's been an absolute joy playing and learning and working on it.
Especially the last movement has so much humor and sarcasm and wit. The first time I heard it, it reminded me a bit of Shostakovich, who was influenced a lot by Honegger. And likewise with the Schulhoff, I had known a bit of his cello sonata and the string sextet, but was not familiar with this duo at all. And again, has a very unique language, a lot of elements of jazz, Hungarian, folk music, and also a bit of the second Viennese school in the sound world that he creates. And so we have had so much fun exploring that music.
Yeah, I mean, it's very expressive music for sure. I mean, the motivic elements and the gestures are so much from the expressionism movement that was really popular in the early 20th century throughout Germany and Austria, and the old Austria-Hungary territory. So yeah, I mean, it's just been also a really unique find for us to discover the Schulhoff duo for violin and cello. Yeah.
And we thought it would also be interesting to put these short selections from the two-part inventions of Bach in between the works to give the listener a time to kind of meditate and reflect on what they just heard, and also go back to Bach, which is the foundation of so much of our music, and to explore, again, the sort of what the two voices can do with each other. I mean, Bach was so innovative and so pioneering in that way with those inventions, and then to hear how that develops, where that thread goes 200 years later in the 20s and 30s when the Schulhoff and Honegger were composed.
Yeah, it's really, and interestingly enough, Schulhoff also wrote his own inventions for piano, and he dedicated them to Ravel. I mean, they're wild. I mean, they're absolutely wild. Probably more wild than our duo, and if you can believe it. And the idea of inventions is it's all about, you know, improvising an idea and building upon how you would expand that idea. And I think all of our duos do that. The Haydn, the Honegger, and the Schulhoff, of course, to a much bigger extent, but it still comes from that kernel of these new ideas just from two parts, you know, from Bach.
So we've really enjoyed working on these works together in this unusual time when so many of us are sequestered at home and unable to hear live music. We're really happy to be able to share it with you via this wonderful platform. And we hope when everyone is healthy and things are back to normal that we can play this concert for all of you in a real hall.